PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. What's up, everybody? May the 4th be with you. Welcome to Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast here on the PLD Projects Network. I am your host, PLD, and this long, luxurious-haired man to my right or left, or wherever you're looking at me, Matty Gunner, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you noticed the hair. I tied it up today. I had it in like a man bun, and I guess like it's just I let it out, and it's long, luxurious, as you said, and yeah,
looks royal. Looks very royal. Like you're.
Is that because I am now the new heir to the empire?
It possibly could be. You did show me that photo. Talk to me about that photo of you luxuriously on a throne with some red Imperial guards, looking like Darth Maul sitting on the throne of Mandalore.
So first off, I just want to say, fuck that Smurf-looking dork. I am the new heir to the empire. No, seriously. I got to shout out the people at Fans Strike Back. It's I guess it's a traveling thing. Apparently they do it all over the world, but it's here in London right now. Your boy got sorted out with some tickets, and I went in there, had a look today. Obviously, it being May the 4th, I was like, I got to do something Star Wars on May 4th. And it was really cool. It was really cool, like exhibit. I expected it to be kind of small because the building, it's kind of like the TARDIS. Like the building looks quite small, but then you go inside and it's like massive open spaces. And it's like a bunch of really rare collectibles stuff from there we go. For the audio listeners, PLD has put the image up on the screen of me sitting on my throne. Fuck Charles, the real king got crowned today.
Continue. Please continue.
But yeah, there was some really cool stuff. I took a photo with Darth Maul. I took a photo with Jar Jar. I found Boba Fett. I took a video. I've got a reel like scheduled to go up on our Instagram page at Holy Snokes Pod for us on Instagram. And it's me like going like that. And I'm like, Boba Fett, where? And then I turn and he's behind me. But there was like some really rare, like Joseph would have lost his mind at the amount of like 3/4 inch figures that they had like in glass cases.
Nice.
And yeah, it was really cool collectibles. Like they had a HK droid helmet in a case, and they had these photo op opportunities. Like one was on the bridge of a Star Destroyer, the other was that one on the throne, and another was like sitting on top of a speeder bike.
Right.
I found that one to be quite cool, but I also got told off on that one because having experience riding bikes, like normally when I turn, like you really want to put your knee down. So I was like kind of hanging off it, and I had my knee like quite close to the ground, and the guy was like, "Can you not do that, please? You might you might snap it." So I was just like, okay. Yeah, it was a fun experience. They did like a VR experience where you get in and it's like VR, you're flying an X-Wing. It's really cool. So if it's ever in your area, Fans Strike Back, go check it out. It's a lot of fun.
That's very cool, man. That's what a great way to celebrate May the 4th. It's funny. I'm not I'm celebrating. Of course, I'm not doing anything specifically today, but I'm watching Star Wars. I do have an event on Saturday, which I'm going to. My wife, I didn't even know it was happening, but my wife kind of bought me tickets spur of the moment, like 2 weeks ago. And so I get the night off of work. And I was like, okay, what is it? And I guess the Albany Symphony is playing our local Palace Theater, and they're doing the music of Star Wars. So
that's cool.
I love Star Wars.
Have you ever done the movies in concert before?
Oh yes. I got to see. I only got to see Empire Strikes Back. It's the only one that was around me at that point. I think Star Wars came around me, but I was not in the area that day, unfortunately. So I never did Star Wars, but I did do Empire Strikes Back, which was very nice. But either way, yeah. So I like the music, so that's a good way for me to close enough to celebrate May the 4th. I assume
Revenge of the. Would it be when you going Friday?
It's Saturday, so it's the 6th and 4th.
Yeah,
Well,
Revenge of the
Revenge of the
Sixth.
6th. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
that's a funny thing. Let's bring it up. I'm going to bring it up real quickly. Not to dwell on it, but everybody else starts Revenge of the 5th. I kind of like Revenge of the 6th better. That's my own personal.
I do too, but I think it's just because they go one after the other.
I get it. I do get it. I get it. So, but that's my own personal, my own personal taste.
But this is the May.
This is the. I actually hadn't heard that one yet. Okay, this is the May. I like it. I like
This is
it.
the May.
Star Wars celebrated May the 4th by releasing 2 shows today. One of which we're going to talk about. One of which we not going to talk about too much. I want to say the one we're not going to talk about, the Young Jedi Adventures, because we haven't had a chance to watch it yet. That's not something we plan to like do a deep dive review like we do on Bad Batch or Bando, or like today we're going to do Visions. Probably because it's kind of the show. It's not going to need like a deep dive. I think we're both going to watch it at some point.
Yeah.
It's Star Wars, and I don't care if it's for preschool, if it's a preschool book, or if it's like a grandparents book, whatever. It's Star Wars. I'm going to probably ingest it into my system somewhere.
If you want a detailed account of why Nubs is the greatest new character in Star Wars, go check out our friends at Force Center, because I know Ken is absolutely in love with that little thing.
Absolutely.
Even though I'm still here flying the flag for B2 Emo, y'all must have, in the word of Roy Jones Jr., y'all must have forgot. You're jumping on this new guy bandwagon. I'm still here with my guy, B2 Emo. He's the real heartthrob.
Yeah, I get that. You're always been loyal to those you support, so I really do appreciate that. And when I say we're not going to do deep dive, I have a good feeling that we'll probably have watched it by the time next Holy Snokes happens, and I think we'll have a conversation about it probably, just because. Why not? It's canon. Or I think it's canon. Is it canon? I don't even know if it's canon.
I don't know.
But it's important. It's cool to talk about anyway. And Nub's so damn cute. I can't help but fall in love. But today is also what we're talking about. Today is going to be Vision Season 2. We are going to do it similarly to what we did yesterday. If you caught yesterday's episode of Vision Season 1, we did a ranking of our favorites in order, and we also took a look at what we'd like to see continue, what we'd like to give another shot to go forward, maybe canonize them, so to speak. And maybe talk about what we'd like to see more in Season 3, maybe. We'll say. But I will say it's harder this time around, because Vision Season 1 I watched a long time ago. I got to sit with it a bit, and then I rewatched it for the show. Having gotten a chance to just watch this once through means that if I go back a couple months from now and watch it again, this could completely change. This is all like just kind of first impressions and everything else. But I will say my overall first impressions were solid. Very strong. I liked every single episode to a degree. Obviously, like some more than others, but just like the first season, there's not one episode that I would say was not worth watching. They all had definite good things about them.
Yeah, there was two of Season 1 that I could probably say that I don't care to go back and watch. Go check our episode yesterday if you want to know what those two are. But this one, I was like, I could watch every single one of these again, and I probably will.
Absolutely. When it comes to ranking, it's just that one's not quite as didn't quite connect with me as much as another. That's really all it is. But they all are very Star Warsian at their core, and that's the important thing. It's just amazing how many different studios and different creators can all feel Star Wars at their core. And really, I mean, we know it because we're fans of them, and our generations are now getting to be the filmmakers and the creators. They all grew up on Star Wars, so it's obviously it's all in their DNA, just like it is in ours. But it is a nice reminder, I'd say. But before we do that, we do have a few pieces of news to talk about here. It's amazing how we can go a day and still have news to talk about after a long news brief yesterday. First one we'll touch base on is specifically for May the 4th. Return of the Jedi, actually, which is re-released this weekend, and it actually managed to crack the top 5 weekends box office despite only being on 475 screens. Now,
is that domestic or is that worldwide?
That's domestic, I believe. Yes, domestically in North America. Yes, because it was a film. The article, of course, I get a lot of all my news sources. I try to take them from Star Wars News Next. I really like how they curate their news. I mentioned that every podcast. I think they do a very good job of sifting through the sand to tell you what's real, what's a rumor. They said they didn't have it played in some specific international markets, but they didn't have those numbers at hand. But either way, 475 screens, I think that's a great accomplishment. This is a movie that's on Disney Plus. You can anybody can go see it anytime they want. There's nothing new about this. No special added footage. No, not the original one shown again. It was the same one. It's on Disney Plus. Just to be even in the top five, that just shows you how important these films are, even to this day. That you can get people out despite movie theaters being, we're still kind of recovering in a way to a degree. Obviously, the box office hasn't completely recovered. I think it's just a good sign. I love that idea. I went and saw it with my son. I was excited. He liked it. He enjoyed it quite a bit on the big screen. I enjoyed seeing it on the big screen. I just love seeing things on the big screen. I'm far less distracted. I can watch Return of the Jedi here at home. Quite frankly, I haven't seen it a lot of times. I might go to my phone every once in a while. I might go in and out of things here and there. In the big screen, I'm just able to concentrate on it, immerse myself in it, and what a movie! What a fun movie!
Mm.
Did you get a chance to see it?
Yeah. I went yesterday.
Okay. Cool.
And wait, was it yesterday? Or was it Sunday? When did I go? Monday I went. Okay. It was bank holiday.
Okay.
I remember that. I remember it was bank holiday Monday. That's why I went. And it was absolutely rammed. I had a balcony seat. I had to do it like Palpatine. Sit on the balcony and watch. And those movies, man, like I can watch them a million times. And when it gets to the celebration at the end, I still get the warm and fuzzies. When Luke takes off Anakin's mask, I still get the warm and fuzzies. I still get that shot through the heart, and Anakin's to blame. He gave love a bad name.
Okay, Matty Bunjo.
I know Mark Ellis is going to be very happy with this news that it hit the top 5.
Yeah, I'm definitively will be very happy to hear that. But that was a good celebration to that. Another article I want to bring up, also from Star Wars News Net, we talked about the strike yesterday and how it's going to be affecting Star Wars potentially. They had a great breakdown of what to expect. Again, this is all kind of speculation. Nobody knows the ins and outs and everything. This is all based on just what we know of what's going on and what we think we know. So we can't say for sure this is exactly how everything's going to break down. But it is something to kind of keep in the back of our minds that this is potentially what we have to, I want to say look forward to, because we don't want the strike to continue. I want the strike to end with the writers getting their proper due and getting their proper their proper salaries, et cetera, and everything that they deserve. And hoping that whatever they do will also lead to the directors and the actors guilds also getting their proper due in a few months when their contract ends. Because long strikes on that could cripple. I mean, we don't want anything to cripple. We want everybody to get their proper due. We also don't want anything to crippling the box office and everything else. Let's get everybody back together on the same page, making movies, doing what we do, doing what they do, and letting us all love again. We all need that escape. But we all also need to have our creatives being paid what they're due. So, but anyway, when it comes to Star Wars specifically, they broke it down. They said into Star Wars television, Star Wars is actually in a decent place overall. The scripts for multiple products have been done for a while. Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew are both well into post-production, so they shouldn't be or there should be nothing affecting them at all, pretty much. Bad Batch Season 3 is deep into production at this point, so scripts should probably be done at this point. Obviously, last-minute changes will be affected if they can't really do those last-minute changes. But I have to say, again, this is coming from a place of complete ignorance. I'm not a creative. I'm not an animator. I don't know what their process is over at Lucasfilm. I don't know how many, but I feel like last-minute changes are something that happens less with animation than happens with live action, because it's not like something you can do filming-wise. You live. It feels like it's something that it's locked in more in animation than it is in live action. I could be wrong.
From the way Filoni's described it before, they do happen because he's said that, like, it's not like, I believe he said something along the lines of, it's not like animation. I can't just change stuff on the fly. What I put on the page, that's it. So I think that there might be, but it's Bad Batch. Like, Jennifer Corbett's going to have her vision. She's going to know what she wants to do. She's probably had this ironed out since season 2. She probably knows how this story is going to end.
Right. That's what I think too. And I feel like that's going to be okay. Star Wars News also said that the same went for the Tales of the Jedi season 2. So I guess Tales of the Jedi season 2 is also deep in production. I don't know where they got that piece of information from. I've never seen anything about. All I ever knew was that it was announced. As far as production, it also stated that it was scheduled for a 2024 release. Now, I didn't see any scheduling release dates for Bad Batch or for um, Tales of the Jedi.
I did see for Bad Batch.
And was that 2024?
I think they said late 2023.
Okay. So either way, I mean, I don't know where they're getting that 2024 date for Tales of the Jedi season 2. But again, they usually don't go up. I'm usually on there. They don't go off half-cocked, so maybe they must have it from somewhere. It would make sense. It would obviously make sense that 2024 would be the shooting day if they're going to announce it in Celebration this year. But if that's also the case, or hopefully that won't get affected too much either. It's deep into production at this point.
Just tell me the Acolyte's safe. I give a shit about.
We're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. The last thing about that is specifically about animation. Unfortunately, since it does take a long time to produce, it says the strike will most likely to affect unannounced shows that Lucasfilm has been developing potentially. We obviously don't know what they are because they are unannounced. But I guess, I mean, that's okay. The only thing that's bad about it, of course, obviously, is that it just means there'll be a longer time to wait between animated shows. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a longer strike if they decide to push Tales of the Jedi in order to have more material. Like instead of having, like they're both scheduled to go first quarter, maybe if they don't have something, they might put one in first and then have Tales of the Jedi come later on to kind of like dole out the rations, so to speak, while they have a lack of material to produce later on. I don't know, maybe. But we'll see about that.
And maybe do they go? Obviously, I don't know how this works. If it's the same for writers, maybe do they go to people that aren't a part of the WGA?
Well, that's the case too. I don't know how often that happens, and like there are people who are not part of the WGA, but does that?
Do they stand in solidarity?
Yeah. Is it what's the moral thing to do? I mean, I would assume that the moral thing to do if you're a writer that you'd want to stand with your fellow writers and you know make sure that they get their proper due, especially if you might join the union someday. Who knows? But again, I don't know. I don't know what the temperature is.
And there might be that young, hungry writer just waiting for a shot, waiting for the phone to ring.
And does Lucasfilm do that though? In a way, do they want to do that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. I kind of feel like it's
from that Sam Witwer interview, from the podcast that he did, he seemed to say that Lucasfilm are the main thing with them is they may not pay well, but they are very loyal.
Right, and that's what I'm feeling as well. Now talking on to what you're saying is much of the Acolyte and Andor have both been shot already, and both have the benefit of being overseas productions. Now, this is something that Star Wars Newsnet says I'm kind of like iffy about. I don't know if this means I'm sorry. It said that it meant that because they're being overseas, they are less likely to have a union presence, and they can thus skirt some of the problems that the strike might present. Again, that goes into that shady gray area of like, yeah, we could probably get away with some things, but do we? I don't know. So I don't know. Supposedly, though, the Acolyte's supposed to complete principal photography later this month, so it was probably very close to being done anyway. Maybe they can get away with it without having anything else shot, anything else having changed. We do know Andor is supposed to have about 4 months to go still, but they do the script's done.
I think Andor it's kind of an outlier in this case because we know how it's going to end. Right. Tony Gilroy said nearly 2 years ago how the last season's going to go. He said the last shot of the last episode is going to be right before Rogue One starts.
Yeah, that's actually what came out today is the last 3 episodes take place the last 3 days before Rogue One. That's what just came out again today from a source. So
yeah, that's he said that at Celebration Anaheim.
Yep.
So Andor's good. He's got that mapped out. We're good for Andor.
But the other thing, I go back and forth is that yes, it's mapped out, but as far as like sometimes when you get there, you have to make changes to make it work. And that's the problem. They can't make those changes to make it work. And that's the problem. Maybe on paper it's done, but then you get there and it's like, oh, it's not fucking working. We got to change something here, and they can't really do that. And that's the problem.
I trust Gilroy.
I do trust him as well. I mean, I think it should be. I do trust Gilroy, so hopefully it'll work out as well.
I know he wasn't in the preview footage, but this guy better make an appearance, and he better not die, and he better not become K2.
You don't think he becomes K2? No.
Fuck no. He lives, and he has a happy life.
We'll find out. Maybe he'll get destroyed, but that'll be the last thing that pushes him.
Don't.
Why would I say that? I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. They mentioned that the Mandalorian scripts for season 4 have been done for a few months. The team is starting to work on early pre-production. So it actually is a good thing for Mando being where they are, because I do feel like unless the strike goes on a really long time, they can probably weather the storm and just work on pre-production stuff and kind of do that stuff that they need as far as that goes. So that as long as that the strikes from SAG and DGA can be avoided, and they can get WGA done well enough, I think Mando should be in a good spot.
Take that, everyone that said Mando season 4 wasn't going to happen.
Now, the films get a little more complicated at this point. We have obviously the 3 ones that were announced. Now, according to Star Wars News Natty, something contradicts what you said yesterday. Stephen Knight is in the WGA now.
Is he?
I guess that's what they're saying. So out of the next 3 Star Wars projects, 2 of them have writers involved in the WGA: Stephen Knight's Rey Skywalker story and Dave Filoni's spin-off film for The Mandalorian.
Huh. I Googled it. I Googled Stephen Knight WGA and nothing came up.
Maybe he joined it recently. I don't know.
Maybe.
They said the last we heard from Lucasfilm, Knight's script, presumed to be our 2025 movie, was a month and a half from being ready 3 weeks ago. So that means his final draft is probably now around 3 weeks from completion. Now, a first draft has been written. They could probably do some pre-production and everything else, but a longer strike could affect that. The other player is that I guess James Mangold is not a member of the WGA.
Okay.
But he's the kind of guy who might opted for solidarity as well. And of course, the Taika Waititi report we had yesterday as well, so we don't know what's going on with that. So the idea is, the best part about it is I think that's one of the reasons they decided not to announce what movies when, because they're going to have to play it by ear and see how far along they can get with certain things, and then like whatever one decides to get forward fast enough and hit those dates, then that's the one they'll probably go with.
I'm willing, if I had to put house money on it right now, I would say Mangold, because from the way he talked about this movie, it seems that he's like, fuck a strike, fuck creative differences. This movie is getting made. I am making sure this movie gets across the finish line. That's the kind of attitude that I'm getting from Mangold when it comes to this movie. Seems like this is something he really wants to do. So if all this stuff's going to get held up, if I had to put money on it, I would say Mangold would be the one that they go, okay, this is ready. Let's go with it.
The good thing is they don't have to announce anything yet. That's the good news. Because I think you might be right in a way. Maybe Mangold is willing to break. I mean, I'm not going to comment on the morality of it. I don't want to have that kind of discussion that can be had elsewhere if you want, and I have no problem with you wanting to have that discussion elsewhere. I personally don't want to. The story about Visions and May the 4th, I don't want to get into a deep dive discussion on whether it's right or not to do so. I'm more just going to concentrate on the what is happening or if it's going to happen. I feel like what they could do right now is like the plan is the Rey Skywalker movie. Mangold's going to work on it. If the strike goes short, then they commit and go with the Rey Skywalker movie. If it goes for a really long time, then they could pivot and go the Mangold movie first.
Yeah,
that's what I kind of feel like they could do. That kind of actually goes into my next topic and our final news topic of the day. Kathleen Kennedy had some comments in Empire magazine, and while it's not necessarily involving the strike, it does kind of take a focus on how she and Lucasfilm are looking at Star Wars now as far as the films go. The quote she says, or the article says, including her quote, "Now it's a question of when those 3 upcoming movies are expected to arrive. And as Kennedy tells Empire, that's simply a case of when they're ready. I've often brought up Bond," Kennedy tells us at Star Wars Celebration. "That's every 3 or 4 years, and there wasn't this pressure to feel like you have to have a movie every year. I feel that was very important to Star Wars. We have to eventize this. The simple answer is nothing is likely to hit the multiplexes until at least 2025. It's much better to tell the truth," she says, "that we're going to make these movies when they're ready to be made and release them when they're ready to be released."
Fair.
That kind of, I mean, I like the idea. I like the eventizing. I don't know. You don't have to mention, Kennedy says Bond. You can go back to Lucas. Go back to Lucas's original. They made them. They were ready. Every 3 years they had a movie, because that's when they were ready to go at that point. If we're going to do that again, that's fine. We do 2 years again. If we're ready in a year, I mean, I think you could. First of all, I think that movies could be ready faster than those days. Because first of all, since Lucas isn't doing them, it's a case of filmmaking has sped up a little bit. You can do a lot more with the effects and things that don't take as long. And you have different teams doing different movies. So it's a different kind of scenario. It's not like Lucas is doing every film where he has to take the breaks in between or does things in between. Like you could have two movies working on at the same time. You could do that theoretically. But I like the idea that we eventize it, and I like the idea that we. I'm loving more and more that we didn't get release dates. I remember I was a little not mad. I was a little perturbed at that when Celebration happened. It's like, oh, so we're getting a movie announcement, but no idea when they're coming. I like that more now. I like that a lot more because it's like the idea is let's make these movies. And then when it's ready to go, then we'll announce this is the release date. Then we'll announce you're giving yourself options. Don't leaving that door open to change streams if you need to, as Kathleen Kennedy is wont to do. You might as well, if you're going to have someone like that in charge who is want to change things when she feels things aren't working. I like the idea to give her a little slack and let her be able to do that, not so publicly, shall we say. So there's not any backlash about it. Yeah. The other piece, their quote that is a little different is, it's all about looking into the wider lore and legacy of the Jedi belief system. What we're exploring is the evolution of the Jedi, Kennedy confirms. We're going very far back. We're looking at the present, and now we're moving 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. The First Order has fallen. The Jedi are in chaos. There's even a question of how many exist anymore. And Rey is building the new Jedi Order based on the text she was given and that Luke imparted on her. The Force was to be felt for many years to come. Doesn't say anything new, but it does. We are confirming 15 years after. We are confirming that's about the Jedi being rebuilt. Interesting to see how that eventually falls into place. But I want to read the rest of the article when it comes out, but I thought those were two snippets that we should mention on the show tonight. Any comments on either of those quotes at this point?
No, it's kind of hard because she's just confirming the stuff that we already knew. And while it is nice to like hear her confirm it, it's kind of like, well, yeah, duh.
Right.
You stood on a massive stage and told us this already. Give us something new. Give us the juice. Give us the squeeze.
Yeah, that's what we're not going to get though. In a way, I think that's okay because again, like I said, now she has room to pivot. We don't even know Taika Waititi is a fourth film he developed. Obviously, Taika Waititi's film is still actively being worked on, if nothing else. So that's a fourth film we know is being worked on. You could say Rian Johnson's a possibility, but that still seems like much longer way off at this point. And that might still be lip service. Who knows? That might be a case of, we both like each other, both work together someday, and may or may not happen. There's 4 movies that are in active development that we know of. So, all right, that's the end of the news today. I'm still got about 30 minutes of news, so still a longer news that we like to make sure we touch base on everything, like to make sure we comment on everything as we can. But let's get into Vision Season 2, which dropped this morning for me at 3 a.m. Eastern. I watched it at 3 a.m. Eastern. I made it through. I will admit I fell asleep during the 8th episode, which was the pit. I fell asleep at that. It was about 5 or so in the morning. I dozed off. I went back, watched it again, and then went on and finished the entire thing with no problems. And my overall take is that I highly enjoyed them. I think I'm more prepared now for these kind of stories than I was even when the first Visions came out. I think it compares wonderfully to the first Visions. Similarly, in that there were some that I absolutely loved, and there's some that I liked strongly, but there's none that I didn't like. I feel every one of them was worth watching. What was your viewing experience like, Matty?
I watched the first half kind of like on my break from work. So
Okay.
I got a chance to sit down with about 5 of them and really take them in. The fourth, a little bit more of a like speed watch, like one, all right, next, okay, next, just so I was like aware and had the general gist of them to get ready for the show today. I probably will go back and give them all a second watch. In fact, I know I will, because there's some in here that I absolutely adored. But yeah, I would say the lowest score I would give is probably a 7. So I enjoyed all of them. I think consistency. I think this had more consistency than the first one.
Great.
I
Which is
feel
funny
like,
considering it's much more different. Like there's all
yeah,
anime, all Japanese. This is all over the world, and yet it did still feel more consistent in that way.
I think there was, I think it's because there's some anime styles that I'm not too fond of,
Mhm.
and this one I was kind of allowing myself to be more open,
Mm.
and like I had no expectations, but with season one, it's like, okay, I know I'm gonna get 9 episodes of straight anime.
Yeah,
This
right.
one, I'm like, yeah, I saw what they look like at Celebration in the Visions panel, but like I had no idea what they were gonna look like overall,
Right.
and most, if not all of them, blew me away.
Yeah. I also will be rewatching and actually definitively watching soon. I am totally using my son for my own benefit. Um, my son is a big like, anime fan and animated fan, so he wants to see them. We are going to finish our watching of Rebels. We are in season 3. When we finish Rebels, we will sit back and watch. We just didn't want to break up our Rebels viewing, kind of got a momentum going with Rebels, so we want to finish that. But after Rebels is done, before we move on to Andor, which is our next in our saga watch through, we're going to watch the Visions shorts then. So I'll get a little time
I'm
away.
not ready to watch Andor again. I'm not ready yet.
He's never seen it, so this is his sole saga watch through. He's watched pretty much everything else now, except for Andor and a rewatching of the sequel trilogy and kind of rewatching of the original trilogy. Like he watched them when he was really young, so I used to have them on all the time. Mostly, it wasn't even that he sat and watched them. I just had them on all the time, and so he knows about them. Like when he watched Return of the Jedi, he's like, yeah, I knew everything was going to happen, but it was different seeing it, and especially seeing it now that he's gotten the whole saga like under his belt, so to speak. So got those films. I got Andor, Rogue One, the original trilogy. We're going to rewatch the Ahsoka episodes of Bando and Book of Boba Fett to get to prep for Ahsoka, the Ahsoka series, and then we're going to watch the sequel trilogy. So that's what we got left on that. But now we're inserting Visions into the mix. But let's get into it then. Let's get into it. Like we did yesterday, we ranked them, and that's how we will discuss them. We'll put them in the order of our rankings. Matty, I want to start with you. Which was your, I would say, least favorite? It's not, it's the worst because it's no worse, but it's the least favorite of yours.
My one, I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this because I saw a lot of people love this. The one I enjoyed the least was Screech's Reach.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think I like the design more than I did the story.
Okay.
It kind of, the style kind of took me back to like Tintin. Did you ever watch Tintin as a kid?
I watched the movie Tintin. I didn't never saw the show.
It kind of like took me back to like Tintin and that like early throwback Saturday morning cartoon kind of a style. And it's difficult to do a ghost story in Star Wars because people will just be like, "Oh, ghost story, so we're just gonna have like Force ghosts show up." Is that what's gonna be the ghost story of Star Wars? I really like the character of Dahl, like her sense of wonder, her sense of adventure. I thought that was cool. I love the design of like that hag-looking Sith creature. I thought she was super cool. But then there was the end, and I was kind of like, I don't know, the end just didn't land well for me. Like her going off with the, I guess that was a Jedi.
No, actually, that was a Sith mother.
Okay, so that was the Sith mother. Okay, so is Dahl the daughter from Mortis?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I wasn't quite like, I don't know how much this goes into canon or not. It feels like that to the potentially.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, we got the like the Anakin, don't look back.
Right.
So that did make me smile, but
right.
I don't know. Maybe I gotta watch it again, but it's just something about it. I preferred the style and the animation style over the story.
Okay, I'll just say it now. I had this at number 5.
Okay.
Number 5 for me, and I had it at a 9.5. You had this at a 7, I assume, is right? You said, right? Okay, I will say a 9.5. But I do. The funny thing is, I agree with most of what you said. I think visually, I kind of struggled with it at some points. I did love some of the designs. There were some shots that were absolutely beautiful, like we saw the darkness for the first time when they go into the cave and that kind of stuff. I love the screeching ghost. I did love that concept of it,
Mm.
even though it is kind of a weird in a galaxy where we get force ghosts all the time. It is. I agree with you, it's kind of a strange concept, kind of tough to
Mm.
do. But I love horror movies. I love horror movies. So to me, I've always wanted a horror Star Wars show or movie or whatever. I mean, we got the horror book back then, and back in the expanded universe
I
days,
think
which
I
I
read
loved.
that.
You ever read that?
I don't think I've read that. No.
God, I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of it now. It was written by Joe Schreiber. Oh, Death Troopers. That's what it was. Death Troopers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I did.
And then Red
Yes, I
Harvest
have read
after
that.
that.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
it's
have
basically
read. I have
zombies.
read Death Troopers. Mm.
So I loved those because it was the first time we got horror in Star Wars, and this was kind of in that along those same lines. The best part about it to me, honestly, was that it kind of gave me a little bit of that Amblin feel in the beginning. It kind of had the like, well, I was
Yeah.
almost like this could be Skeleton Crew-ish in a way. You got these kids, they're they're in a shitty situation, but they're going to go on an adventure. I do like the aspect at the end, though. It's not Jedi that takes her away; that is a Sith mother that takes her away. It's kind of an interesting angle that they took
Mm.
with it, like because so it's like you're watching it at the end where you would be excited for her because she's going away for a Jedi, even though she's leaving her friends behind. She's going to be a Jedi. It's like Anakin, right? But you kind of have that. Oh wait, but she's a Sith. That makes it a little less like I don't
Yeah.
know if we're supposed to be rooting for this or not. Or not at
You
this
even
point.
look at like some of her friends. They're looking at her like, dude, you shouldn't.
Right.
I did feel like the very start of it, the kids in the workhouse. I did feel very Oliver Twist.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
Um, all right. So I got that number 5 at 9.5. So I'm going to drop down to my number 9 here, and I gave it a 6.5. And I feel like I'm going to get a little flack on this as well, potentially. It just wasn't as much for me, and that was Au's song.
No,
The
that's
last
fair. That is
one.
my number 8.
Oh, okay. The design was extremely unique. I think it was really well done. It didn't connect with me as much. That
Mm.
makes sense. I think it would connect with some people very well. This one felt more like a Disney Pixar
Moana.
wannabe kind of a yeah. It had a lot of this kind of same tropes. I kind of thought the concept of her singing to purify the crystals was an interesting one, especially because I
Yeah.
love seeing more. Like watching Rebels again with my son. I love that we're exploring like Ezra has the ability to tame creatures. Just listen to Dark Disciple audiobook. I love Quinlan Voss has this psychometry kind of stuff. I love when we get different force powers, so to speak, different connections with the force can do different things. So I did like that she can sing and purify crystals. That's kind of a cool thing to me. But all about it, I kind of felt like the whole time through, it just felt a little like a Disney knockoff to a degree. I mean, it's on Disney, so I guess that makes sense somewhat.
Yeah.
It's something that I feel like the kids are going to love this one, and I'm more power to them. It just didn't connect as much with me.
Yeah.
But how about you? This is your number 8.
My thoughts are kind of the same. I did. We've heard of people seeing and like feeling the Force as a kind of song before. I think it's Avar Chris in the High Republic who is like this. The Force is like a song,
Right.
but like actually seeing that like manifested, I thought was really cool, and I thought that was like an interesting way of doing it. I will say I do think this was a masterclass of stop motion, like
Yes.
how they were doing it. I was floored by like, because normally like stop motion and stuff, I'm very like, yeah, this is kind of like old timey, but this was like a fresh modern take on like the stop motion technique, and I was just like, this is cool. I like this.
Yeah. All right, that's cool. I like that. Well, that was your number 8. And what did you rank it out of 11?
I gave it 7.5.
7.5. Okay, so not too far for me as well. Okay, just writing these down for posterity's sake. So my number 8 then is the one that I admittedly fell asleep during the first time through. It was The Pet. And again, that was not actually a commentary on the episode itself. That was just me being very tired at 5 in the morning. The Pit this was the one that was done by the United States and Spain, I believe it was. Was it Spain or the United States? Japan. It was Japan. I'm sorry. That's right. Dart shot Geo and Lucasfilm themselves. This is one where I like the concept. I thought it was very Star Warsian, of course, rising to meet fascism, the people rising up to save real people. I love the Imperials leaving the people at the bottom of the pit after they're done with them, which really is a great way to show what the Empire does. They discard you when they're like they discard you like a beer can if you're done if you're done using you. Again, this was more of the execution of the concept that threw me off a little bit. A little bit of Dark Knight Rises in there with the kid climbing out of the pit, and everybody yelling and screaming it up. I don't know if that was. I think it had to be intentional because it was so similar in a way. I did like the stormtroopers in there as well. I thought they were kind of cool stormtroopers. The designs, the overall design of the animation was a little static for me, a little little plain for me. And maybe that might be what they're going for. It was fine. I enjoyed it enough. And maybe when I rewatch it later on, I can come back and I'll say I was wrong, that this is one of the best ones, and I was just too tired to watch it. At this point, though, I give it a solid 7. It's the concepts are great. The execution is a little lackadaisical compared to some of the other ones.
Okay.
Where did you have the pet?
The pit. Where did I put the pit? The pit was my number 5.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, you know what? Go ahead and do that now because then we can skip number 5 because I didn't know 5 was Creatures Reach.
Yeah. They do that now. Again, I agree with you. That I feel like the concept and the message behind it was more powerful than the actual animation. But I feel like I didn't need anything from that. It was very much. I did watch it in a little bit of a rush, but I feel like I got everything I needed from it. It was not shying away at all from the inhumane treatment of a certain section of society that is quite rightly reflected in this. I don't think I need to spell that out for people who have watched it, and people who are listening to this probably understand very well what I'm saying.
Correct.
I didn't need a deeper lesson from this. It was purely a showcase of this is wrong. The way we are treating these people is wrong.
Right.
And we as a society need to knock this shit off. And I feel like it did its job of just being like, hey, this is our message. We don't need to put any bells and whistles on it. We don't need to have a Sith using color to connect to the Force. We don't need to have 2 massive idols no, this is just a story of what is right and wrong. And I really like that. I thought that was very different to what we've been getting a lot of with these shorts.
Interesting. And what do you rank it out of 11?
What did I give it out of 11? 8.5.
8.5. You know, I gotta say what you're saying is actually beautiful to me, and it might actually make me revisit it on a different level. I didn't miss that necessarily, but I don't think I connected with it as much as I didn't connect it to a couple of dots in my head at this point as it goes through.
But you were tired, so
I was pretty tired.
We can't, people can't expect you to catch every. This is why this is a 2-person show. Yeah. This is why we're having a conversation. You catch things I don't get. I catch things you don't get. That's the whole point.
It does sound beautiful. And I did. Yeah. I actually had it a little higher, but at one point, as far as in the not number wise but ranking wise, than I did before. But okay, I'm definitely gonna have to revisit that. Thank you, I appreciate that. I love hearing. This is why I love having this conversation with you, because you make definitely, like you said, you make me see things a little bit differently. I'm gonna take a look at it a different way next time I watch it. And see, I'll report back. So then let's move on then to number 7 for you. What was your number 7?
Mine was The Spy Dancer.
Okay.
I like this one quite a bit. It's very much like old World War II spy thriller, the cabaret performer working for the other side, like a Mata Hari type figure. I really like the KX droid. Right. This was the one where I was like, you guys took a big swing with this.
Right.
But I feel like it landed. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I was just like, you know what? You tried something. It landed. Good job.
Interestingly enough, I also put the Spy Dancer here. at 8.5, and a little bit of Cirque du Soleil in Star Wars, which is always kind of cool. It's a great visual
Bit of femme
effect.
fatale kind of a
A little
deal.
femme fatale as well. I love the acrobatic dancing aspect of it. I just love watching that go on. I will say this is one of the ones. A couple of these started out. I wasn't big a fan. I wasn't like I think I'm not into it, but I kind of got into it by the end. And the whole sequence with the when you find out, spoilers obviously, that the Imperial she's going to assassinate actually is her son. And that's kind of a very Star Warsian trope, obviously, from a different angle. Instead of the good guy being the son, the bad guy being the parent, it's the other way around. Um, I love seeing that aspect to it. And the vibe is great. The vibe is very cool. It's very what you said, like spy thriller, maybe World War II kind of thing. I just didn't connect to it overall compared to some others, but I appreciated what it was going for. I really did. It's just not entirely my thing. I gave it an 8.5 still because I really did enjoy it overall. Again, when it comes to these things, you give an 8. Like I guess it's kind of funny. I'm knocking some of these things, I'm still giving them 8s, 8.5s out of 11. Because the thing is, if I was to look at this individually, if we had done this not by ranking, but instead like every we did like the next month, he's like, all right, every week we're just going to break down an episode. I might have something different to say about some of these things. But as far as comparatively go, I have to knock some of the lower ones down. Just to tell you why they didn't work for me as much as some of the other ones did. I feel like I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy because I did enjoy this episode overall.
You're not being a negative Nancy. Some of them didn't work for you as much as others. People can't expect you to love every single one. You don't need to apologize for that or justify your reasoning for it. Some of them didn't land as well as others. Doesn't mean you didn't like them.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm just trying to make clear is that when I say it didn't work for me as much, it did work for me. I'm not saying it didn't work for me. There's a difference between it didn't work for me and it didn't work for me as much
as much. Yeah.
So, the Spy Dancer was great though, so I gave it an 8.5. All right, let's move on then to our number. Where are we? 6. Our number 6.
What did I put them? Okay, this was an interesting one because I saw a lot of people giving a lot of love for this one. In the Stars.
Same. Also have this as different.
Okay. I love that this was a type of animation I have never seen before.
Okay.
A lot of familiar Star Wars tropes in the natural versus mechanical. I have a soft spot for anything that depicts the destruction of the environment. I also think it's very telling that this was done by the studio from Chile, because there was the it deals with the colonization and the destruction of the environment, the Empire poisoning the planet. It's the mother, the matriarch that goes off to take on the Empire. It's very much a depiction of Mother Nature. And I keep going back to the topic of the colonization and the destruction of the resources. The Imperial officer says these resources belong to the Empire, which very much speaks to these big like Western corporations going into the rainforests of places like Chile, like Brazil, and just taking from the land without giving anything back, just because they solely believe that because they can make money there, that they own that land, when you absolutely do not.
Right. And what did you end up giving it?
I gave that an 8.5.
Okay, I as well also give it an 8.5. I will agree with everything you just said. I love getting to discover different cultures. Much like this is one of the things I loved about Book of Boba Fett, was getting deep into that Tusken Raider culture and things I don't know about, things I never have experienced. This is a great way to look at it. This is a culture that I'm sure. You said Chile. I'm sure kind of maybe it's from the Chilean heart, and then maybe that's what it has this whole feel that the culture is the entire point of the story. And it does echo what George Lucas has always wanted to talk about, like you said, nature versus technology. The ones who were just they're not technologically advanced, defeating a very technologically advanced group. I will admit that the daughter, the younger one there, was kind of annoyingly positive to the point I'm kind of like, oh God, kid. I kind of felt like I was the older sister. Like, dude, like, you don't even use the Force. Like you're standing up against an entire army, and yet at the end of the day, she proved me and her sister wrong. I definitely felt more with the sister, maybe being the older brother in my household as well. That's what it was, kind of. I love the fact that at the end she does stand up to the Empire, and she is absolutely right. It lends credence to one of the best things about Star Wars, which is hope in a hopeless situation, and that really touched me. Far more. Again, it's one of those episodes where I kind of wasn't quite into it at the beginning. Like I was a little annoyed at first. By the end, I was like all in, and like this is exactly what Star Wars is supposed to be about: hope in a hopeless situation against against an over powerful enemy. And at the end of the day, they blow up the Death Star. They blow up the processing plant here to clear up some spots. We get to see her mother in the stars again, that culture, that painting, those paintings.
I love that where they look right at the end, where they look up and say that she's never far.
It's so beautiful.
We're never alone, and then the two stars go next to her, the mother star. I thought that was beautiful.
It is a beautiful story overall. The animation is beautiful as well. I was very happy with this one overall, although it took me a smidge to get into. I feel like all these take a smidge to get into because they are so. If I had to pitch Visions in a single statement, it's that they are so nothing like you have seen in Star Wars until they are everything like you've seen in Star Wars. It's just like it's more of like the core is there. It's just different wrappings and different frosting on the cake, so to speak. Once you get past that frosting, which you're kind of like, oh, that tastes a little weird. Oh, it's fucking good.
I think if I was to suggest it, someone, my thing would just be like, just sit down, shut up, and watch.
You're far more straightforward and blunt than I am.
That's true. Because like I don't think I'd be able to explain it. That's so I would just be like, just trust me, shut up and watch.
Fair enough. Okay, we're going to skip over number 5 because we already both said our 5s from previous entries. So we'll go to our number 4s.
This, God, I was torn between this and my number 3. It's constantly been going back and forth. I still kind of am, but screw it. I'm going for it. This is going to be a shocker. It's I Am Your Mother.
Okay.
I got to see this at Celebration. I grew up watching Wallace and Gromit all the time. I would read the little comic books that came in the newspaper of Wallace and Gromit, the little strips down the bottom of the newspaper. So it was very familiar to me. I thought some of the humor was absolutely fucking brilliant. Like when he's like, she is an absolute, yeah, that stuff like that. That is just so Aardman comedy, and it just made me. I think this one's as high as it is just because it was a familiar feeling, and it made me feel good. And I was actually talking to Joseph about this at Celebration. I love that it's a mother and daughter relationship that's being shown in it. We don't get the closest thing we've got to that is maybe Leia and Rey, but they're not even mother and daughter. So for this to be a mother and daughter relationship, and it to feature that so heavily and prevalently, this I thought that was awesome.
Interesting. So what did you give it as a ranking?
I gave it a 9.
9. Okay. I'm going to jump forward before I go back to my 4th. My third was I Am Your Mother.
Okay.
I can't agree with you more on everything you just said. This is actually the one that is so, like, if I just talk about that box, it's such a case of not being anything that Star Wars has ever really truly been, unless maybe you count like the Saturday morning cartoons like the Droids and Ewok kind of thing, trying to do that kind of vibe. Maybe that's close. And yet I laughed my ass off throughout most of it. I enjoyed it. It brought me back. It did have a Saturday morning cartoon kind of vibe, but in the best ways possible. I loved having Wedge in there as the spokesperson. I loved having young kid with the bully and the family thing. I love the embarrassing mother
The
aspect
bully
of
and the mother that have like their hair shaped like Darth Vader's helmet.
it. There were so many little pieces of things that like little tidbits in there. They're like, I like what you're doing. I see what you're doing there. You're a fan. You're showing me things. You're giving me things. And I love the character. I love the mother character. It was such a great beginning of the character. And I love the droid as well. I loved all of these characters. So I want to actually, I'm going to put forth, I want to see this continue. I want to see this be an actual Star Wars series for younger kids in a way. But the young kids that kids like me can enjoy it still. Kids at heart like me can enjoy it still. I really did enjoy what they did with this. It was touching. It had the humor that some of the things don't have. I think sometimes Star Wars creators a lot recently are trying to go more dark, and they try to sometimes the humor gets a little left behind, like a little bit of the silliness gets left behind sometimes. This was silly in the best Star Wars way possible. I'm highly appreciative of it.
So I got to watch this. This was the clip. This was the one they showed at Celebration. I was watching it with Matty and Luke from Star Wars Sessions podcast. And when the creator said that she based this off of a tradition that we have here in the UK when you're in school, when you're in like primary school, like low down, like very young years, called Sports Day, which is where like you compete in a bunch of different sports, rounders, running, like relay races and stuff, and all the parents come to watch. As soon as she said that, the three of us all looked at each other like, oh God, like we can't imagine, like even imagine how this is gonna go. And then we like walking out of it, we were like, yeah, I felt like that kid.
Absolutely did. Okay, now we'll go into my number 4. That was actually not my number 3. We'll go to my number 4, then we'll do your number 3. My number 4 was actually the epitome of what I would talk about a few times along the way. It's one that I started out, I really didn't like it at first. I did not connect with it in the first like half of it, and I'm not even sure when it clicked. But then it became one of my favorites at the end, towards the end, and that one is the Bands of Golak.
Okay, that's my number 3. So that's good. But, yeah,
I gave this a 9.5 at the end of the day. Because I initially actually had 6.5 and I crossed it out by the end. I kind of like, when I was watching, I had a little notepad. I kind of like wrote out the title, and like halfway through, I might start doodling a number in my head, and then I would change. I had 6.5, went to 9.5. Once they got like the whole stuff on the train stuff itself, I was kind of like, okay, it's fine. I don't love the design. I don't really see what they're going for. The characters were, they just didn't connect with me very well. I was kind of like, okay, this is fine. I kind of don't really care. They got to the encampment or the middle of the desert with everybody. It all flipped a switch. I loved the Sith design, the Inquisitor Sith design. I thought those were wonderfully creative, like dark, without being like Darth Vader, trying to be Darth Vader. Like a lot of the Sith Inquisitors, I love it, but they try to be Darth Vader to a degree.
Based on, I think it's like a demon from Indian folklore.
That's what made sense to me. Makes a lot of sense to me. But I loved the characters, the family, always so strong in Star Wars' family, and the younger girl who is force sensitive, and the male child who was just trying to protect her. Oh my God, stop using the force. You're gonna. But then like the Sith come and they become this. There's a solidarity between everybody there. We have the Jedi gets introduced. It became just a colorful, vibrant display of everything Star Wars should be. It's vibrant. There's awesome action sequences. We get the heart of the story of this young youthful kid, this brother trying to protect her. I loved it so much. I love getting into that culture again, much like the Into the Stars and like Tusken Raiders. This culture is a lot different from anything we've seen in Star Wars, really. And at the end of the day, it's a great action piece, but a great cultural piece as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah. This was the one where the creator was like, I took inspiration from Schindler's List.
Oh, was it? Okay. That makes sense now. Okay.
And watching it now, I'm like, okay, I see where you're going. This one I thought was fucking brilliant. It's big, it's bright, it's so Bollywood, only with like without the musical numbers, but the story, my fucking God, I loved it. And maybe it's because, look, I'm not proud of the things that my country has done to the country of India. I'm not proud of it at all.
Right.
But the way that they were telling that kind of story of like the colonization and like forcing the character to like keep her abilities hidden, like I can only imagine like it like I can't even imagine like what that must have been like in say like World War II for someone to be like, hey, like keep what you are fucking quiet because
Right.
this could get you in a lot of shit.
Right.
I love the brother protecting the sister. I love the design of the Inquisitor. Yeah, this was just brilliant. I loved it. There was a little bit where I was like, where are you going with this? But then once it clicked, I was like, oh, I get it now. Okay. And it was just like a completely different, like I didn't expect this. This was not what I had in mind from the description that the creator gave.
Right. Of course
And
not.
I think it was absolutely brilliant because it was so contrasting between the two that you got the big and the brightness of Bollywood, but then you have this dark and downright some points disturbing story. And I was just like, okay, this is like it's taking on the culture, but not ignoring the history.
Mm.
They're not trying to shy away from the history. And as I say, that my country's done terrible, terrible fucking things to that country. So I'm not going to shy away from it and not say, hey, that was horrible. But the art that has been created from it is fucking beautiful.
Beautiful.
I love this. I love this one.
What did you rank it?
I believe I gave it a 9.5.
Perfect. Same as me. All right. Well, then we are up down to our final two. And I told Matty before then that I actually don't have my number one in mind because I have two of them that I'm kind of worrying back and forth. He said, fuck it, do it live. I said, okay, I will. And here we are. I'm still not ready yet. So, Matty, what was your number two?
My number 2 was Journey to the Dark Head.
Okay. Tell me about Journey to the Dark Head.
I fucking love this one. This was if they were gonna do like a sequel to the Ninth Jedi, I feel like this would be it. If they were gonna expand the Ninth Jedi, this could be like a second story and then they all come together. I love that it was just a familiar straight up anime style. I know it came from Korea as opposed to Japan, but I thought it was cool seeing it in the High Republic era for one. The fight choreography, the design of the fights, fucking outstanding. I know I'm swearing a lot, but I love this. It's so. I feel like it's so difficult between this and my number one. I'm like, any given time, one could switch over. I love the use of colors when the lightsabers would clash. It kind of reflected Tool's pull to the dark, and Bishan might be one of my new favorite Star Wars villains. He really reminds me of Sephiroth from Final Fantasy, who is my favorite villain of all time. He has that like so soft spoken, but he feeds off your despair and your fear, and like he knows exactly what you're afraid of, and he exploits it and hones in on it. And he doesn't have to be this big, like theatrical villain because like his very presence is like that terrifying on its own. He has this thing of like, I will speak softly, so you have to lean in and know that I am more important than you. What I have to say is more important. He's great. I loved it. I love this one. This one I was sitting there just like, oh my god, this is great.
What did you give it?
I gave it 10.5.
10.5. I likewise gave it 10.5, but spoiler alert, this is my number one. This was my number one. And honestly speaking, that obviously we'll talk about Sith in a second. Obviously, your number one Sith and mine, that's my number two. Which is kind of funny. We both have the same number one, too, just a little flip. If you look at my episode, the episode from yesterday, my favorites in order, my top two or the Ninth Jedi and the Duel. Similar situation in this case, it's the same situation. Like Sith is a design aspect wise is absolutely beautiful and everything else. The Journey to the Dark Head, like when you said this is a continuation of the Ninth Jedi and your I guess spiritual whatever a sequel, not a sequel, but like a continuation as it is alike to Ninth Jedi. I feel exactly the same way. I know exactly what you're talking about. They do have the similar vibes, and the animation was actually somewhat similar to a degree. As far as it did evoke that with me, I thought that this, like the Ninth Jedi, did the best combination of something uniquely creative and new, but yet feeling absolutely like Star Wars from the get-go. I didn't have to wait to get into this. Nothing about the outside layer was just there, just like the inside layer was. It's saying different things. It's saying important things. I love the aspect. We get this whole idea of this young Jedi who lost his master, who is toying himself and toying with the dark side, having to learn on the fly. And I love the character, the camaraderie between the two, between was it Tool and Anna? Was it Anna?
Anna, yeah.
Anna. I'm very bad with characters, guys. I'm sorry, especially after one watch. Tool and Anna, though, those characters, they had a great chemistry. The ending when they're going off or walking off the sunset together, still kind of like bickering in a fun camaraderie kind of way. Like this is the one I'll get point blank. This is what I want to see continue more. I want to see these two characters having more adventures together. A young Jedi and this young mechanic who has a great outlook on the world as far as like wanting to do good. To me, that's a great Star Wars combination right there. I also love Bishan. Bishan is probably my favorite enemy or dark side user of both Vision season 1 and season 2. I love exactly what he said. It was basically you combine Thrawn with a really, I don't know, like a Darth Maul kind of character in a way. You kind of combine the two, a little bit lesser, not quite as physical as Maul, but definitely got that whole Thrawn kind of talk low. You're going to listen to me. I don't need to yell and scream. I don't need to tell you.
He doesn't need to be overly physical because like every movement is
It's a
one
dance.
of like it's a dance, and like he just like he flows with it, and like he knows exactly what's coming, and he's just going to be there to meet you every time. He doesn't have to overexert himself. He knows what's coming, so he's just like, okay, every move he makes, every word he says has meaning to it.
Yep, absolutely. Can we be Bishan more? And that's something to. So Tool and Bishan make for a great trio. As far as I know, not trio, but we have three characters, good guys, bad guys together. And Journey to the Dark Head was pretty easily my favorite one of this group. So number 1, 10.5. So, all right, let's finish up with your number 1, my number 2. I gave Sith a 10. What did you give Sith?
Ding, 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 ding. We got an 11 here, folks.
All right, fair enough. Tell me all about it, my friend.
Like, so I used to paint quite a bit in my younger years. And there were some things here. I was very questionable when the creator said that a Sith uses the Force to create art. I was like, huh, okay. I'm curious, but I'm also like fairly skeptical. I love the use of like watercolors in the animation style. That's something I've never seen before, and I absolutely love it. Like, it is very much that of an artist creating this. Like, the idea that the Force can be used to create art using watercolors, this like flowing like spectrum of colors. Like, some people see the Force as a song, some people see it as a waterfall, some see it as a dark black abyss. But there was a line that she said, which said, it's like the darkness wants to be a part of the painting. And the darkness it's a part of her. She can't ignore it. And when you're painting a picture, if you just use bright, vivid colors, it kind of looks fake. Like, there's no you need to use shadowing when you paint and when you create art, because it's what grounds it. It's what, makes it. It doesn't just then just look like a blob of colors. Like, if you shadow it and use shading, then it really grounds it and gives it this whole new life. And I feel like that was a perfect representation of her story of she was a Sith. She's trying to run away from it, but that darkness is always there. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be following her. She even says it at the end. She's like, they'll send more, but we're going to go find a new home. But she's accepted that now, that darkness is always going to be a part of her. It's a necessary part of every single one of us. And to show that reflected in the painting, I thought that was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, you're not wrong in any way, shape, or form. And the only thing that kept it out of the top spot for me is I prefer a little more straightforward than the abstract. And this definitely has that abstract feel to it, degree, especially the design to it. But at the same time, this is what you do if you're asked to create an animated Star Wars thing and make it different. This is different, and this is something that's beautifully designed, beautifully powerful. I could not look away. I think this was a great one to open up with because it was so unique and so powerful in every which way or form. I love the design of the Sith Lord there. I loved that the fact that Lola was a Sith, like a redeemed Sith, or trying or striving for redemption Sith. The using the paint again, it's like those different ways you can use the Force. You can use it any which way. As long as you're creative, you're tapping into the Force. That's what basically says. If you're being creative, you're tapping into the Force in some way, shape, or form. And I do love the fact that even though George Lucas has always said, destroying the Sith and destroying the dark side is what kind of makes what gives you balance. I know that's what you should kind of strive for if you want to stay true to Lucas's vision. The idea that we do have to develop, we do have to evolve a little bit and understand that everybody has darkness in them, and sometimes that darkness can help you find the light even more. You can't have the light without the shadow. You can't have a shadow without a light. But you need a little bit of balance that way as well. So you can't deny the darkness. If you deny the darkness in you, then you're more likely to be swept up in it. So they take you over in a way. So don't deny the darkness in you. Accept that you have the darkness within you. Use that darkness or shine a light on that darkness in order to become the better person that like Lola's trying to be. So it was a beautiful story for me. The design's out of this world. I don't know how you get the imagination due for that kind of thing, unless it's a lot of LSD or something, or something to that effect. Because it was a beautiful pieces of artwork. I loved it. It felt like a fever dream in some ways. And I loved how they used the color when they went through different parts of the ship and the red and the darkness. And then we get into the stark whites. The battle sequences were fun. It's amazing how well it felt like a traditional Star Wars story, despite the design of it being so completely not a typical Star Wars story. So that marriage was perfect. I gave it a 10 out of 11. And it was my number 2 again. I just felt a little more comfortable at home with the Journey to the Dark Head. But this is very, very close. And like I said before that, I was warring back and forth. I could have put this number 1. I could have put this number 2. But I'll take it. It's at number 2. It's at number 2 for me. It's at number 1 for you. I'm glad for that. And there we go.
And when's there been a time that we've wanted to see a Sith live a life of peace?
Yeah, that's a great point. So, well, there you have it, folks. That's our look on Visions. We are very excited to bring out our look on Visions to you, both the Visions Season 1 and Visions 2. And breaking news-ish, to a degree, not news-ish, but Jeff Snyder has posted on Twitter that there is a rumor now that Star Wars Visions Season 3 is actually already in production. I'm excited about that. I mean, I don't like the scoop game that much, and I don't want to speculate irresponsibly, but at the same time, Jeff Snyder has proven to be accurate a lot of the time, and he's very clear that this is a rumor. But I figure we're talking about Visions, we might as well pitch that in here at the end.
Yeah, he's got a proven track record. I've got no reason to doubt the man. I don't necessarily like the scoop culture, as I've said multiple times, and we've said multiple times. But the man has a proven track record.
So it's definitely something to speculate about, or at least to comment on, shall we say.
I will say, if there is a Season 3, I would like to start moving away from Jedi and Sith.
Yeah. Well, I talked to this when I had to talk with my son yesterday when I was driving somewhere. It's funny that I think I mentioned this yesterday too. If you're given 15 minutes, you're a designer, you're giving me 15 minutes to do a Star Wars story. you're going to gravitate towards Sith and Jedi and lightsabers, because that's the core of Star Wars. Because you can have a smuggler story, you can have an action story, you can have a fascism story in almost any other universe. And I mean, to have it in Star Wars is good, and it's well deserved. But if you give me a chance to do a Star Wars story, how could I not have a Sith or a Jedi in it? That's part of the problem, I think. I think you have, is you can give them one shot. But I don't disagree. I mean, it would be nice to see some of the different angles on.
Look at like I Am Your Mother and Spy Dancer.
Oh, it works. It definitely works at times. But I'm saying you're more likely to see, if you get a shot, you're going to see more Jedi and Sith than you want. But I get it. That's fine. I get wanting more. So
give me a claymation Dex's Dinosaur.
I'm all in for it. That's what I'm saying.
Well, can you imagine like Jabba the Hutt is claymation?
Yeah, that's so good. That'd be so good. Oh, it'd be so good. Alrighty, one more piece of news I just want to drop, because it is May the 4th. Not news, but this was the day Carrie Fisher did get her Hollywood Walk of Fame star. Rest in power. And there's Billy Lord in a great Princess Leia dress alongside 3PO and R2. As she's receiving said Walk of Fame star, Carrie, we stand you here on Holy Snokes. Our general, our princess. She'll always be a princess to me. Will be royalty to me. Yeah, like I have nothing else to say about that except for we love you. We thank you so much for your contribution, not only to Star Wars, but to life in general. You're always a bright star, always a shining light of what you want to see in a person. Funny, loyal, powerful, a true rock star, so getting what you deserve, good to see. And may the Force be with you as well. So that'll wrap us up for this day's episode, I should say. This is our second episode of the week of Holy Snokes. Where can the folks find you there, Matty?
You can find me on Twitter at Matty Gunner, Instagram Matty_Gunner. You can find my band Mourner, MOURNER, on all streaming platforms. You can find me here every week for Holy Snokes, and every couple of weeks for Class Action.
Absolutely. And I'm at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. And you can find me all over the place on this channel, obviously, Class Action, 2 Meter White Dudes on Film, Review, Crown Jewels, which I have a sister channel for, PLD Products, Crown Jewels. And like I said, if it's your first time here, click that like, click that subscribe, leave us comments, get us closer to that 500 subscriber mark. We're like 406 now. Let's keep going. And if you do like what you see and want to support even further, find a different way to support, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/PLD Projects. We got Austin Cadell, Jeremiah Morris, Matthew Kearns, Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Alston, John Lustrina already on board. You can be too. Join our crew. We're having a great time together, and I really couldn't do it without you guys. So I really do appreciate you. And we got a Patreon hangout coming out soon, so you can join sooner than later. I think Saturday we're going to do a hangout, and maybe do some other stuff next week, some more Patreon content. I want to talk to Matty soon about doing something else Patreon-wise. But if you can't do Patreon, we totally accept it. I totally understand. Completely get it. Don't have to do it. But support any way you can just by watching the videos. That's the first and foremost, of course. We'll be back next week here on Holy Snokes, and I believe we haven't hammered down the topic completely, but I think we're going to do a good old-fashioned ranking episode. I'm not sure what we're going to do yet specifically, but I do love ranking. We do love ranking things in Star Wars. So we'll get back to you soon. I'm not sure what we're going to do. We had some toy ideas from ranking the top Jedis, ranking top Clone Wars characters, maybe top battles, lots of different ways we can go. So we'll let you know sooner rather than later. And then, so hopefully you'll stick around for that and more. We got a lot more content coming your way before we get to Ahsoka, of course, where we'll break those down as always. And of course, any news that comes our way, because we're always looking for the next news bit. But that's then. That's right. That's then. This is now. Until next time, folks.
May the Force be with you. Always.